I can tell the world, I can tell the world, I can tell the world about this, about this. I can tell the world, I can tell the world, I can tell the world about this, about this. I can tell the world, I can tell the world, yes, I can tell the world about this, about this. I can tell the world about this. I can tell the nations unblessed. Tell them what my Lord has done. Tell them that the Comforter has come, and he brought joy, joy, joy to my soul. Joy to my soul, joy to my soul, joy to my soul. My Lord done just what he said.
Yes, he did, oh Lord, yes, he did. He healed the sick and he raised the dead. Yes, he did, oh Lord, yes, he did.
My Lord stood on the mountain top.
Yes, he did, oh Lord, yes, he did. And he told old Pharaoh's host to stop. Yes, he did, oh Lord, yes, he did. Now
I can tell the world, I can tell the world, I can tell the world about this, about this. I can tell the world about this. I can tell the nations unblessed. Tell them what my Lord has done. Tell them that the Comforter has come, and he brought joy, joy, joy. Yes, he brought joy, joy, joy. Lord, he brought joy, 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 joy to my soul.
Welcome to the 61st graduation of Commonwealth School. I'm Therese Hendricks, the board chair, and I'm really happy to be here with you all this morning. I've been told often that Commonwealth is a school that teaches to the question, so I thought for my final quiz for the graduates, I would pose a question. What is your plan B? Do you have a plan B? Will you need a plan B? Here's my hint and corollary question. What do you, my father, and my two older brothers have in common? My father graduated at the start of World War II. He spent the next 3 years in a world war. My two older brothers graduated during the Vietnam War. They got low draft numbers, and they both enlisted. You started your senior year at the beginning of a pandemic and were in lockdown. All four of you confronted a severe change of plans. You learned early that life is not what you plan, life is what happens. Now, this is a very important lesson. If I had asked prior graduating classes, what is your plan B? They would have scrunched their faces and looked sideways and then looked at me and said, who is this woman? What is she doing up there? She's on the wrong stage. Commonwealth graduates are smart, motivated, hardworking. They will succeed at whatever their plan A is. Well, maybe, maybe not. So the good news is that you graduates are going to have a more realistic view of life and what it means. You can embrace opportunities that present themselves without trying to control every step, because control is illusory. I wish you the best of the life you are given and the life you embrace. Our next speaker on the agenda is a man who thought he could relax and enjoy his last years ahead. Alas, this was not to be. But he embraced the opportunity and masterminded, along with the faculty, the admin, and you, the students, an exemplary plan, and you all learned together. So now, Bill, I promise you there's just one more change. We have a surprise guest speaker, for someone you are very fond of, and you will like this plan B.
Hey, Dad. All right, as Therese mentioned, I've been asked to give a tribute to my dad. But first, I want to congratulate this resilient graduating class of 2021. This day is even more momentous of a celebration given the global pandemic you weathered to get here. Maybe you're sick of hearing that, but I am in awe of each of you. As if Commonwealth isn't challenging enough, last March, whoever or whatever calls the shots in the universe said, okay, now let's do high school with virtually and with face masks. And you adapted and supported each other. Congratulations on what you have accomplished. I can't wait to live in the world that your generation leads. Commonwealth School has been a part of my family's life for as long as I can remember. During grade school summers, my brother Michael and I would head into school with Dad a few days when my mom needed a break or was visiting family in Greece. Dad would work quietly at his computer, and Michael and I would climb over each other on the back of the faded couch in his office to draw on the green chalkboard. The office had a filled-in fireplace mantel upon which sat small replica busts of Socrates and maybe Alexander the Great or Plato. Many of you know this already, but Dad's background is in classics, and he started at Commonwealth in 1986 as a Latin and ancient history teacher. Ancient Greece permeated our childhoods in the form of storytelling, when, reliving the Homeric oral tradition, Dad would relay tales from ancient Greek history and mythology in nightly bedtime installments. So from an early age, I internalized the magic of ancient Greece. Most of my old computer passwords were names of Greek statesmen or warriors, like Pericles 62 or Agamemnon. Actually, I just updated the Agamemnon password to something non-Greek last week, so I could use it in this speech. I still need to update it, actually. But anyway, it's rare that as a teenager, I had the opportunity to watch Dad in his work environment. When I was a student at Commonwealth, I got to see what he was up to all day when he wasn't playing the role of parent. My presence may have made work a bit more complicated for him on a few occasions. I saw that there was work dad running a school and rolling his eyes if you walked into his office and tried to ask him for money for Starbucks, and family dad, who tried to help you rationalize your way out of a teenage girl meltdown while you cried, "Ugh, you're not helping. Why can't you be more like Mom? She actually knows how to make me feel better when I'm upset." The skills that make him an effective headmaster frustrated me when I needed someone to listen empathically about a social challenge or absorb my panic about an upcoming exam. Dad is wired and practiced at setting emotion aside and practically problem solving. This is the way he expresses care and love for people. He had made the call to blur the divisions between work dad and family dad when he encouraged me to apply to Commonwealth in 8th grade. I think a big reason for this was that education was one of the biggest ways he could impact his children's lives by instilling deep curiosity to learn about the world. Dad saw a potential fit in me in this school that valued liberal education. He knew how the teachers shared their passion for art, science, math, history, economics, and English. Dad has told me many times how, when I decided to attend, he was especially excited for me to learn close reading from Ms. Zaporin, Mr. Davis, Ms. Bluestein, Mr. Whelan, and Ms. Brewster. For me, the learning environment created by Commonwealth's teachers made way for life-defining moments of self-discovery. After a challenging year learning English from Ms. Zaporin, and as an aside, the 40 minutes of an in-class essay with her were electrifying, and I haven't felt flow like that anywhere in my life except for on the soccer field. I signed up for her art history class junior year because I had to take another class with her, and she wasn't teaching 11th grade English. On the first day of class, we sat in 2A with the blinds down so we could see paintings on the projector screen. We took in Poussin's painting, Summer, or Ruth and Boaz, and discussed what we saw in the categories of composition, color, genre, light, and brushwork. This was the first time I'd heard people analyze paintings the way they could analyze text, and it changed visual art for me. I'd hated going to museums as a kid, and now I was psyched for the French exchange because at the Louvre and the Musée d'Orsay, I'd get to stand in front of original paintings I'd written essays about, like Géricault's Raft of the Medusa, and soak in the drama of the figures and the tension of the compositions. I ended up studying art history in college, and my first job after graduating was at an art gallery. I wouldn't have thought twice about art if Ms. Zaporin hadn't cared about teaching the way she did. I know it's not a good year for this turn of phrase, but her enthusiasm truly was infectious. This care to instill curiosity was the ethos of Commonwealth, and Dad worked to bring this to as many students as possible, and it changed my life. Thank you for letting me in on the community, values, and intellectual possibility you dedicated your entire career to, Dad. The world will be better off for having this especially adaptive and creative class heading out into it after the graduation from Commonwealth. And congratulations on your graduation.
Thank you. I'm not a big fan of surprises, but sometimes they're very nice. Let me add my welcome to Teresa's and to my daughters. It is wonderful to be back in person, and seniors, it's great that we can celebrate your graduation live. It has become cliché to speak about the unique challenges of this past year, but some expressions become cliché because they bear repeating. It has been a difficult year on so many fronts, right up to and including today. We had contemplated holding graduation outdoors at Noble and Greenough School, and I remain grateful to them for their willingness to offer their facilities. But when the announcement of the lifting of restrictions came through, the appeal of hosting graduation close to school proved irresistible. We're grateful to the state and city for lifting restrictions and to the Westin Hotel for readily making this space available to us. I'm so deeply grateful to Alicia Elliott, Jessica Tomer, and David Hodgkins, who did the lion's share of the work in organizing on short notice this in-person event. Thank you, Alicia, David. And to everyone else who has helped today. We invite all of you to come over to the school after the ceremony. That's the wonderful thing about having the graduation here, is we can go, we're in the neighborhood and we can go back to school. We'll gather and mingle outside until 1. In accordance with the state's recommendations for graduation ceremonies, we will not be serving refreshments other than water, but you may go into the building, masked, please, and distanced, to look around and enjoy the art show. I'd ask seniors if you could accompany your parents and families through so that you can all go one way and show them the way through. The reception will be a chance to say some final words of farewell to teachers and advisors before heading off to your various celebrations. It is deeply gratifying to be able to hand off a healthy, fully enrolled school to Jennifer Borman. It bears repeating that Commonwealth's flourishing is the work of an incredibly hardworking and dedicated group of teachers, administrators, and staff who do the heavy lifting around here and have risen brilliantly to the challenges of the past year. So my final graduation can only begin with an expression of deepest gratitude to my colleagues. I will particularly thank, and I don't know where people are sitting, so I won't be able to find you, but I will particularly thank Rebecca Jackman, Stephanie Pointer, Jeff Raciopi, Gary Antoine, and Emma Johnson, who provided key support to keeping us operationally on track and safe through the pandemic. I'll also mention Carrie Healy, who did a superb job together with Natasha Matthews and their committee, putting together and running a fully virtual admissions cycle. They built the plane as they were flying it. Alicia Elliott, Carly Renshaw, and Morgan Chalou, to change metaphors, navigated uncharted waters to secure the resources for normal and extraordinary operations this past year. And Heather Pierce, Isaiah Hedden, and Anna Marquez adapted magnificently so that they could feed us and do so safely through the year. But all these efforts aimed at ensuring that the teachers and students could carry on. And that is what we are here to celebrate. Teachers, whether you had to work from home or were able to travel in person to teach, the resilience, intelligence, and courage you showed left me awestruck and deeply grateful. It has been a pleasure and an honor to work with all of you. Thank you. This may happen occasionally through the ceremony. Just ignore it. I'll keep going. Graduation at Commonwealth is a time to offer particular thanks to faculty and staff who are leaving the school. This is their commencement as well. Today we bid farewell to 4. All of them have contributed in important ways to the life of the school. So we say goodbye with deep gratitude and with gifts. First, Heather Pierce. Heather Pierce, our outgoing chef manager, works not for Commonwealth School, but for Flick Dining Services. But what made Heather such a treasured, beloved member of our community so quickly after her arrival 4 years ago was that in her heart, she works for all of you, all of us. First, she is an incredible cook. Within days of the start of the 2017 academic year, word got out that Commonwealth was a school with great food. We learned how good school food could be from Heather. Furthermore, the way she worked with her cooks and with student cleanup crews reflected the kind of collegial respect we treasure as a community. Her readiness to take care of students and faculty with particular dietary restrictions and to remember and anticipate what they would need on any given day impressed everyone deeply. We all learned something about generous leadership and thoughtful service from Heather. What many of you do not know is the way that Heather was able, by her skill as a manager and cook, to balance the interests of the school, provide great creative menus while saving money, with the interests of her corporate management, deliver efficiently and earn them their share. I learned something about tactful management watching Heather. But now we have to watch Heather move on to a great opportunity across town. It is no surprise that her final gift to Commonwealth was finding a wonderful successor, Deche Fay. We are grateful, Heather, and I know that the students and staff look forward to seeing you from time to time in the coming months and years on visits to check up on them. Thank you. It is probably news to many of you seniors and any students who are listening out there that Emma Johnson will be leaving Commonwealth in August, after she has created next year's schedule. Thank you, Emma. She came to us in 2016 from Milton Academy, where she worked as a librarian, to take over management of our vast, that's ironic, library. But the librarian at Commonwealth also plays the role of adjunct history teacher, working with students at research paper time in groups and one-on-one to teach research techniques and judicious use of online resources, and to help guide students in search for material for their topics of choice. In the years since, Emma has taken on the role of registrar. In that role, she's managed our student information systems, transcripts, reports, and the like, and every summer she has solved the incredibly complex puzzle of schedule building to accommodate a myriad of course choices, special requests, and preferences. In recent springs, she has overseen with Ms. Alves the administration of the AP exams, which is a thankless task, I assure you. And then last year, they went remote. And this year, they offered all sorts of different options for in-person, remote, and the like, making a complex job even tougher. In all that she managed, Emma brought her keen intelligence, patience, and unflappable good cheer. The tinge of irony in her voice last year when she announced the new requirements and restrictions the College Board was imposing signaled both her conscientious attention to their demands and her detached bemusement at the bureaucratic rigmarole she had to deal with. In her research coaching and working with advisees, both of which I was able to overhear when she met with students outside my office, I heard a sympathetic, patient listener and guide, helping students to navigate the frustrations of finding sources or making their way through sophomore year. I'll add that, as a person fully at home with technology, Emma managed our student systems with assurance, and as one of the leaders of our faculty tech group, she proved a valuable resource over the past year as we had to learn to adapt to teaching online and hybrid environments. Emma is heading off to Dana Hall School in Wellesley, where she will no longer find herself in a one-person department, but will become part of a team with former classmates and friends. We are grateful for all that you have given Commonwealth, Emma, and we wish you all the best. Carly Renshaw came 6 years ago from the Boston Symphony Orchestra, a giant fundraising behemoth, to our little engine that could, 3-person development office. Her older sister and brother were graduates, so though Carly had not attended Commonwealth, she knew it well through them. 2 years out of college, Carly took up the role of director of annual fund, I should say only 2 years out of college. She took up the role of director of the annual fund and alumni relations, and later added parent liaison to that portfolio. The roles demand enviable organizational skills, the ability to deal cordially and patiently with questions and concerns from parents and alumni, and the ability to speak compellingly, to tell our story about the work of the school as one invites people to contribute in one way or another. Carly had this all, and in her work showed a maturity and a wisdom beyond her years. Her intelligence and calm geniality have made her an effective spokesperson, and whether coordinating parent committee activities, alumni association events, or reunions in Boston or on the road, she's done a terrific job keeping our community engaged, informed, and involved. As to that quality of calm, Carly held up impressively when we had bad publicity about a trademark lawsuit we'd filed, and which elicited a barrage of angry calls and emails from alumni and the public excoriating the school and especially its headmaster. She held steady through that crisis, proved a thoughtful, reliable colleague as we worked to fashion responses to those open to responses. And Carly, what didn't kill us made us stronger. And let me say one thing about fundraising. When you run the annual fund, you assume responsibility for a significant portion of the income that the school needs to operate. Missing a goal has real consequences. So it's understandable that you might feel some pressure. Last March, when the pandemic hit, Carly, Alicia, and I conferred in March about what we might expect and how we might manage the shortfall that everyone expected. Carly simply carried on. There were a couple of quiet months, but she prepared the annual Giving Day, which she had organized and conceived in prior years. And that effort, which turned out to be an astounding success, gave a shot in the arm to our work for the rest of the year, inaugurating a final sprint that took us, against all odds, beyond our goal. That was grace under pressure. Each year, I can point to tangible results, things we are able to do around the school thanks to Carly's work. Commonwealth is fortunate that Carly gave us 6 years. After 2, I started hearing how, given her ability and character, Carly might move on and up. Lucky for us, she stayed. Thank you, Carly, and all the best. We're not fully complying with the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education guidelines, but don't tell. Jeff Raciopi. He came to Commonwealth from Boston University, where he had been an assistant professor to teach biology in 1996. For about 5 years, he was our biology department, introducing freshmen to the rigors of the field and taking 11s and 12s deeply into advanced topics. About 20 years ago, and this is approximate, Jeff, I know, but he transitioned to IT manager and later added the role of facilities manager. He continued to teach, in most years, a course in mathematics or a biology-related subject. Jeff brought a rich and deep background to his work. Among the many experiences before his arrival, he was a Fulbright Fellow in Pondicherry, India, and a consultant to the Kenya Medical Research Institute in Nairobi, as well as Mombasa Hospital in Mombasa. His PhD from University of Kentucky was in insect physiology, and he published a raft of articles on mosquitoes and tropical diseases in the 1980s. But Jeff's interests ranged widely. He is a voracious reader on any topic and has shared with me book book recommendations ranging from literacy in the ancient world to the politics and culture of Appalachia. Jeff also is a devoted writer, as that process enables him to clarify his thinking on whatever it is he's been reading. Jeff's move away from teaching was a loss for students. Alicia Elliott, our Director of Advancement and a 2001 graduate, recalls Jeff as one of the best teachers she had at Commonwealth. At a gathering last weekend, an alumnus from the class of 2007 recalled an elective Jeff taught on the biology of consciousness, biocon, they called it. This alum remembered with delight an article Jeff had assigned on adolescent brain development, the thesis of which was the lack of reasoning capacity in teenagers. The students came to class loaded for bear and spent, he said, this alum said, the first 10 minutes indignantly picking apart the deeply flawed arguments. Jeff smiled, and when they quieted down, told them he'd assigned the piece to see what they would make of a work of bad science. Jeff thinks for himself, which is one of the reasons he tends to move quietly around Commonwealth, and he brilliantly inculcated that habit in his students. Alicia is just one of many who cite him as a major influence. Jeff's work over the past 20 years has focused on building and maintaining our tech infrastructure as it has grown, and in caring for and maintaining our old home. He has always been willing to do whatever is needed, equally at home helping to set up chairs and AV equipment for assemblies, or help plan and facilitate large building and computer projects. And he has been central to seeing Commonwealth through 2 major transitions over the past 6 years. He helped steer us through our 3+ year building renovation, which transformed the physical plant. And over the last year, he managed the upgrade of our technology capabilities to enable us to run hybrid classes. Jeff's calm manner, or his usually calm manner, his planning ability, and his patience in coping with the unknowns, delays, and other routine disruptions that come with the territory have helped the school and me move steadily forward with confidence in our ability to carry on. Jeff is moving on to a well-earned retirement. Thank you for everything, Jeff, and we wish you and Eileen all the best. Okay, one moment. So, seniors, since we're graduating together, I want to tell you 3 stories to make 3 points that will, I hope, speak to something true about Commonwealth and that will help clarify this headmaster's hopes for you. 2 are personal, and 1 is from an essay I first encountered in college. Story 1. My career at Commonwealth started, in a sense, my senior year of high school and my sophomore year in college. I had a remarkable 12th grade English teacher, William Stringfellow, who had us read, among other works, Plato's Republic, Oedipus, 3 Shakespeare plays, and the Brothers Karamazov. It was world literature, not English. Mr. Stringfellow convinced many of us that life's most important lessons were faced squarely in these works. In the spring of my senior year, I used to hurry home from school, which was only a block away, and plop down in my ugly green beanbag chair to dive into Dostoevsky. I would feel fully that God and the devil are fighting and the battlefield is the heart of man, or agonize over the problem of innocent suffering outlined by the atheist Ivan Karamazov to his brother, the monk, Alyosha. And what was the meaning of Alyosha's brotherly kiss in response to Ivan's Grand Inquisitor parable with its cynical message that humans preferred servility to freedom? I'd become a nerd, and the big questions had me in their thrall. Sophomore year in college, in my 3rd semester of Greek, Most nights, I would sit at my desk for a couple of hours with the text of Homer and a Greek lexicon open in front of me, taking notes as I looked up vocabulary, puzzled through syntax, and slowly got a sense of the poetry of the Iliad. I realized after a while that, immersed in that meticulous work, I was deeply content, and that while the material was terrific, the delight came as much from the utter focus that the task demanded, a quality of attention. I had enjoyed classes before, but with Mr. Stringfellow's English and Professor Fornara's Homer, I realized something deeper about the inherent reward of full engagement, and saw that the habitual anxieties and concerns about what others would think of my work, about grades, about what might follow from my learning and mastery, those distracted me from the task and the pleasure at hand. In those moments, self-concern, ordinary self-consciousness, how will Bill Wharton look, vanished, and the work got much better. Almost 50 years ago, Charles Merrill, Commonwealth's founder, wrote the following: "In taking on a task that is tougher than you think you can handle, you learn the depth of your resources. The work has entered your body, as the German phrase puts it. You don't retreat from the objective demands of the job to protect your personality. You express your personality in the proper performance of the job, or you transcend your personality so that you are no longer at its mercy." Commonwealth was founded with the belief that young people, when joined with inspired teachers and challenging, interesting material, could discover the deep satisfaction that comes when the work enters your body, teaching you that so many of the limits you'd set for yourself about how hard you could work, how much you could learn, are imaginary. In such engagements, we hope you have discovered what you are good at, and we hope you've discovered what it is to lose yourself, good expression, in a task, what it is when the work becomes larger than you. I'm telling you something that I believe most all of you know, but it's easy to forget as we go off in pursuit of the goals ahead. Story 2. Around 2 a.m. on December 18, 1976, on a nonstop drive from Providence to Chicago with 3 college friends, I woke up in the back seat of the car when I heard the driver curse, "Oh shoot," he didn't say shoot, "we're going to crash." I sat up in time to see us sliding, helpless on the glare ice, toward the back of a semi-trailer that was diagonal across both lanes. We hit. I jumped out of the car immediately, and my feet almost slipped out from under me. I thought, I'm standing in the middle of a lane on Interstate 80, and it's a skating rink. I held onto the door of my totaled car, skating along as it, together with the semi-trailer to which it was joined, slid slowly to the side of the road. 2 of my friends were physically injured, one seriously. The third was in shock and functionally blind as his glasses frame had broken. For the next hour, as the ambulances came and the EMTs worked on extracting the driver, I took care of my friends, getting blankets and pillows from the trunk, making sure they were warm and protected from the freezing rain. The EMTs sawed off the door and jacked the steering wheel off the driver, and we were all taken to the Du Bois, Pennsylvania hospital, where I continued checking on my friends. Soon, a nurse pointed to the gurney I'd been sent to. "You're in shock," she barked, "so lie down." I obeyed the nurse. The next morning, I went to the junkyard to fetch our gear from the car and made arrangements for everyone to travel home, the driver in a temporary cast so he could get his knee repaired near his Wisconsin home. That afternoon, I began the journey to Chicago. I remember a nauseatingly bumpy flight in a puddle jumper from Du Bois to Pittsburgh, and in Pittsburgh, my pointing my visually impaired friend to the gate for his flight home to Springfield, Massachusetts. And I remember a Hare Krishna woman offering the front seat passenger in the car, who, with bandaged head and bloody overcoat, looked like a survivor of the Boer War. Look up the Boer War. She offered him a flower. Back home the next morning, I woke up, still shaken as the reality of what I'd been through finally hit me. Then, after breakfast, and here's the point of this story, my mother held out the keys to her car and said, "I want you to run an errand. You need to get behind the wheel and get used to being in a car. I don't want you being anxious about driving." I obeyed my mother. For all of us, but I'm speaking now to you seniors, March 2020 was a car wreck. Not a total loss, as we were able to carry on despite dented fenders and leaking oil and fuel, but a wreck nonetheless. And we were at risk last spring of slipping and falling on our backsides as we were on new slippery terrain, namely online schooling. And just as my accident disrupted my holiday plans, the last year has deprived you of so much that you were looking forward to for your senior year. But you've carried on, and you've navigated the demands of remote schooling, remote college applications, and hybrid social life with impressive resilience. In the last month, as life has gotten more normal, it has been evident to all in the vigor and determination you've shown to make the most of your time together, and in the weariness with which you've made your way through the final weeks of classes, it's been evident how deep and costly the pandemic's disruptions were. It's important for you, however, to get behind the wheel. These last 15 months will leave some residue, but I suggest that rather than give that attention, rather than fret about what you lost, focus on the road ahead. In fact, that's the best way to get over it, being too occupied with the task at hand to let the mind and heart dwell on the past. Back in the winter of 76 and 77, I noticed for some weeks a nervous tremor when I turned the ignition key or passed a semi on the highway. But I kept driving, and that passed. You do the same. Story 3, though more an interesting fact than a story. Over 40 years ago, the late Lewis Thomas, director of New York's Sloan Kettering Cancer Center and a magical writer, published an essay called The Medusa and the Snail. He opens with the observation, "We tend to think of ourselves as the wholly unique creation in nature, but it is not so." He goes on to describe in detail the symbiotic relationship between two particular species, one a jellyfish, the other a snail. Each, at various stages of its life cycle, must feed off the other in order to survive and reproduce. The snail's larvae consume most of the medusa that is living off their parent, and then the vestigial, mostly eaten medusa, fed by its host, produces offspring that will attach to the grown snails that had fed off their parent. One could not survive without the other. They have evolved a unique relationship that Thomas said makes it hard to talk about them as individuals. Where does one self end and the other begin, if, without each other, they are incomplete and perish? They are not really selves, he concludes. They are specific others. It's a good metaphor. There are days when we adults feel consumed by students and advisees who want a piece of us. And I know that you guys feel devoured by the demands of your teachers sometimes. But seriously, we nourish each other. If we were honest, we would have to recast our college recommendation letters. We write about your unique individual capacities and talents, but an accurate account of your abilities, whether you shine as an actor, programmer, historian, or writer, would require a story that includes the efforts of teachers, the encouragement and engagement with interesting friends, and the support and love of family. As we have learned so pointedly this past year, our very well-being depends heavily on our ability to be together in person. Any school worth its salt, and I like to think of Commonwealth as one such place, puts such connections, relationships, at the center. There is no self without symbiosis. Remember that, especially as you move on to college. You have enjoyed the incredible privilege in your time here, a close academic community where you have been known and where you have known most everyone else. But at its best, this has been a place in which you, your classmates, and teachers could freely share your interests and enthusiasms and could add depth and texture to your conversations and jokes with references to books you read or problems you encountered together a few years back. You know what is possible in such a community. Next year, or the following year, for those taking a year off, you will be in a different place. Your project there will be to find others with whom to connect and build communities, likely plural, where this process of mutual feeding and growth can continue. So to sum up, 1, whatever you do, may you find ways to love the work, at least part of it, whatever it is. No job will be as fully and richly inviting as reading Dostoevsky, I'm sorry. Don't waste much time fretting over past troubles and present worries. Get in the car and drive. And appreciate that you've gotten this far thanks to those around you today. Your education has been a cooperative venture, a community enterprise. And know that your continued growth will depend on building similar connections and communities in college and beyond. And one final reveal. You think I've been speaking only to you, but you're not the only graduates here today. I plead my own case, too. We're in it together. And your teachers and I will be eager to hear about your work, your progress, and the new communities you now go off to join and shape. Good luck. And to paraphrase the starter at each year's Indianapolis 500, gentle seniors, start your engines. Go with our best wishes and affection, and thank you. Thank you. Each year, the faculty invites 2 seniors to speak to their classmates at graduation. Anyone who knew how difficult a decision that is would realize what a distinct honor the invitation confers. So we will now hear first from Marcus Tran and then from Sol Gutierrez Lara.
Hello. All right. Oh, before I came up here, I told Alex that I would be looking at him to remind me to take my mask off, and now he's like really aggressively pulling on his mask, so thanks, Alex. Hello. For an entire month, my first grade teacher painstakingly led me through 100 recitations of a traditional Vietnamese nursery rhyme. The Mid-Autumn Festival was coming up, and my 1-minute performance would be the culmination of a tedious journey, chanting about frogs and toads. For so long, I had basically befriended those characters. The moment finally came, and the microphone was being adjusted to my height, so about 3.5 feet, when my mildly myopic self stared down at the large masses of color. I opened my mouth, and the frogs were stuck in my throat. I froze. Yep. I stood there for a long minute before I was escorted off the stage. My mother was not thrilled. So you could imagine her reaction when I told her I would be giving this graduation speech today. I've never stood on any cliffs or hiked to the top of any mountain. However, I imagine it would feel like that moment on that stage. And if so, then Commonwealth has taken me on my fair share of cliffs. But Commonwealth has also taught me to let myself be dazzled by the landscape that presents itself in front of me in any moment on any cliff. A kind of joy in bewilderment that would make me forget that I was standing on a cliff at all. You guys all know that at this point that I'm a lover of all things romantic, and so you know I could not pass up the opportunity to bring a little romanticism into this speech. You might recognize Caspar David Friedrich's romantic painting upon looking at it, if not by its title, Wanderers Above the Sea of Fog. Since there's no way for you to look at the painting right now, I will call upon my art history powers, thanks Miss Dale, to paint the picture for you in as few strokes as possible. Perfectly in the center of the composition, a man stands, facing away from the viewer on a craggy precipice. His cane steadies him as he gazes upon the wreaths of pristine white fog painted in frenzied brushstrokes, the fog dancing around crags and hills and mountains and plains and whatever else one could assume is in the distance. The sky, painted in a similar white, embraces the fog as they meet at the horizon. What is beneath the fog, we could not know, but we could always look a little harder. As Commonwealth students, we are the wanderer. Perhaps some of us are not as confident as he is standing so boldly, so firmly on that precipice, looking out into that great unknown. But maybe I could also convince you of how much more boldly and how much more firmly we are standing now than 4 years ago. Imagine yourself still on that cliff in the aftermath of a thunderstorm, and the gusts of wind have not died down yet. The wind is roaring and is threatening to shove you off. Now, let's reset that image and imagine that you, the wanderer, is a freshman at Commonwealth, and the cliff is a freshman cubby area. What do you imagine are the causes of the uproar, the gust of wind? I'll point to one culprit, our grades on the first English 9 assessment. If you're anything like me, you went into it thinking that, hey, if I could come up with some guesses about what some of these poems' meanings were, then I'm probably in good shape. But you see, freshman me was yelling next to the third floor cubbies about how it was utter nonsense, that was the wrong thing to do. Was I supposed to believe that arriving at the meaning of a poem was somehow less important than picking apart the writer's choices of diction, syntax, cadence, meter, mood, all the things that English teachers remind us to look out for? Close reading. That once disastrous phrase has been transformed into the wanderer's cane, studying him on that cliff. On our final real English exam before the pandemic, we spent many intimate hours with the final page of The Dead by James Joyce. His soul swoons slowly as he heard the snow falling faintly through the universe and faintly falling like the descent of their last end upon all the living and the dead. For at least 3 long hours, we allowed ourselves to be dazzled by the great fog, forgetting that we were standing on a cliff. Like the fog, the last paragraph of The Dead assumes many mysterious mercurial forms, where one moment it dances around as a paragraph of prose, then as verse, then as a benediction given to all the living and the dead. But what if the force keeping you unsteady on that cliff are not those gusts of wind, but yourself? Coming into 9th grade, it was easy to think that others had more mountaineering expertise than ourselves. Sometime over the course of our 4 years, we realized that some of us came in with more math, or science, or history knowledge, but that doesn't make anyone an expert at navigating Commonwealth. Nor does it mean that we are worse mountain climbers just because someone's pace is a bit faster. At the end of the day, we all stand on the mountaintop together, helping each other decipher the great unknown. If Friedrich's central figure is a Commonwealth student, what Friedrich got wrong in his painting is that the Commonwealth student wouldn't be alone on that cliff. All of us have learned the great Commonwealth lesson. First, we had to fail. Then, we learned how to look for helping hands, whether it be the hands of our peers or teachers. Steadied by those helping hands, we started to feel safe on that tall precipice, standing firm and ready to indulge in the act of looking into the great beyond. In art history, we would characterize this great beyond, shrouded by fog, as sublime. The sublime is supposed to terrify us, overwhelm us, threaten to kill us even. We are meant to experience the sublime on a visceral level. It is meant to impose limits on our reason. The wanderer standing on that precipice is experiencing the sublime. Yet, at Commonwealth, we deal with the sublime so brazenly. What is unknowable, we slowly tease out. We might not end up seeing anything, as is the case in many of my classes where discussions end up with no real answers to any of the questions posed. They aren't small questions either, but grand ones. For example, when discussing Milton's Paradise Lost, we play around with the idea of fallenness. What if Adam and Eve had already fallen before they ate the apple? The great unknown that may admittedly at first confound us ends up yielding enjoyment and excitement. There are still many stages and many cliffs where I completely freeze up upon looking into the distance. But even if at first we are terrified, we, both the teachers and students, provide each other with a helping hand to stand as firmly as the wanderer on that rocky cliff. As we leave this place, I know we will all encounter many a cliff in our futures, but if there's one thing I do not doubt, it's that we are all very equipped to look upon the dancing sea of fog not as an enemy, but as a friend. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Stop caring about what other people think. If you have something to say, just say it. And if people don't hear you, say it louder. It's taken me a long time to truly internalize these words, my whole life, in fact. But over these past 4 years at Commonwealth, I have emerged from my timid shell and now have the confidence to say, I don't think I'll ever retreat back inside. As a little girl, I loved story time with my family. I also, however, loved big ideas and physics time with my dad. I've always been curious. I've always loved to learn. And I've always loved a challenge. This love of being a student is what brought me to Commonwealth and what kept me here even during the rougher patches when the work and the stress got really intense. It's also what has pushed me to think for myself, to form my own opinions, and to voice them. On the first day of my sophomore year, Mr. Wharton gave the whole school a motivational pep talk. One thing he said really stuck with me. Education cannot be given, it must be taken. I have done my best to make this my experience at school every single day, from spending hours with a challenging physics problem to analyzing cookie ads and commercials for a US history paper. And of course, mustering up the courage to raise my hand. But my first years at Commonwealth, speaking up was difficult. Participating meant having to synthesize and articulate my ideas on the spot, with everyone's eyes turned on me as I did. Raising my hand, keeping a steady tone as my heart raced and my throat went dry, felt like a feat. I still tried my best to do it, but it was hard. My secret weapon was email. Being able to take my time phrasing things made me much more comfortable expressing ideas or questions I had in class. My junior year, I decided to make full use of this tool, and Mr. Barcy and Ms. Haber can attest to this. I became much more familiar with my teachers by speaking up in this way. I became less self-conscious. I became less tentative. I became more willing to take risks, not just through writing, but in class, in person, on the spot. During my time here, one of the most valuable things I've learned is to be okay with uncertainty. I've accepted that I don't have to have a perfectly polished paragraph of a contribution to share my thoughts in class.
One of the most helpful pieces of advice I've ever gotten from a teacher regarding participation is, if you haven't quite reached a conclusion or formed a solid opinion at the moment, you can instead pose your questions or doubts to the group, and that too can help drive forward a discussion. Thanks, Ms. Brewster. Now that I think about it, I'm pretty sure my previous English teachers told me the exact same thing. So thank you, Ms. Tyson and Ms. Dale. But this time I was finally ready to let it sink in. I've also continued to see the importance of not being too quick to draw a conclusion. I've learned that sometimes it's better to read something through and really try to understand it before you tear it to shreds with pointed questions. And I found that my own arguments are stronger if I have a handle not just on what I think, but on what the author wants me to think, on what the author thinks, and why the author thinks it. And it's okay if I don't always have some final verdict to drop by the end of class. It's okay if sometimes I have nothing to say. But very often, I do have things to say, and I do have opinions and conclusions to share. We all have a moral compass. We have instinct. We have ideas and opinions, some reasoned, some half-reasoned, some vaguely existing in our minds without our really knowing where they came from. But there's a next step: to voice our opinions, and to do so in such a way that really manages to convey what we mean to people, and to be able to defend what we think, to articulate why we think it, how something works, and also to give enough context to make our point understood, and when necessary, to give solid evidence. I think of classes like Reasons for Writing with Miss Brewster, where we'd practice picking apart what we read to get to the root of our impressions, sometimes dwelling on a single sentence or word for a whole period, and where we'd learn how to put that analysis to good use in our own writing. This was one of those classes that made me stand up straighter, sit up in my chair, tilt my head, and raise my eyebrows once in a while. Just like my reading and ethics class with Mr. Wharton, in which I was always ready to question, sometimes to push back, and found that the most fruitful conversations necessitated listening closely and really understanding all the different perspectives on the table. I had plenty to ponder and plenty to ask and plenty to say in both of these classes. It dawned on me finally that my opinions, polished or not, fully fleshed out or not, deserved to be voiced. Stop caring about what people think. If you have something to say, say it. If people didn't hear you the first time, say it louder. Loud and clear, I had to speak up. And when I did, I began to find that my interactions and relationships with classmates became a lot richer. I find myself constantly surprised and enlightened by their observations. They can turn my interpretation of something on its head, and I think that sometimes I can do the same for them. I think every day we remind each other that there is more out there in the world beyond what we've been taught to think and see and feel. And along with an appreciation for and understanding of the thoughts and experiences of others, has come a growing confidence in my own thoughts and experiences, my values, my beliefs, a confidence that I too have something special to contribute to this community and to my classes. The kind of thinking and listening I do in school has become a part of how I live my day-to-day life, how I watch movies, listen to music, read the news, talk to friends and family. I sometimes hear that it's unrealistic to keep your thinking cap on all the time, to live life with a critical mind, that sometimes it kills the fun. But the more I speak up, the more people I get to listen to and share conversations with, the more I get to live and observe, the more I am convinced that the opposite is true. That we can make thinking a part of our lives we don't have to think twice about. That thinking can enrich an experience, a book, a movie, a conversation. To me, it means enjoying more, having more fun, laughing more. And here at Commonwealth, I get to live this every day. From writing geometric proofs with Mr. Letarte, to chatting about cultural identity and globalization with my advisor, also Mr. Letarte, to identifying a racist knot in a piece on SeaWorld's marketing, to writing an article about news coverage of Mexican politics, to conversations about economic systems and human nature with Mr. Wharton, I have always felt encouraged to question and try to understand not just the what, but also the why and the how. I think it falls right in line with the school's purpose, to help us grow as individual students and human beings, as thinking, feeling, curious, responsible citizens of the world, and people who enjoy life. People who choose to live actively, to engage with each other and the world around us, to take risks, to explore and experience wonder, to follow our passions and find new ones, to work hard, to persevere, and to enjoy the fruits of it all. I look at my classmates and I see this purpose fulfilled, a legacy our school has every reason to be proud of, and we have every reason to be proud too. Today we are graduating, and I'm sure we can all agree that it's been quite a ride. Rough at times, thrilling at others. Hopefully rewarding, now and in the future. Today we are graduating, and let me tell you, I am pretty damn proud. And I hope that you are too. Thank you.
This will not stay on long, but I figured I had to do it for you. Thank you. So there is a path across the stage and right down, and when you come up, diploma with the left hand, fist bump, elbow bump, or just take the diploma, all right? Pardon me? Of each one? Oh. Okay, all right. Let's pause briefly so that a photograph can be snapped as well, all right? So, if you can come forward, we will begin the awarding of the diplomas to the class of 2021 with Alexandra Andromeda Bates. There you are. Thank you. Look this way. Okay. Thank you. Maoz Bizan. There you are. Great. Come here. There you go. Thank you. Stephen E. Wald. There you go. All right. Okay. We'll do this. And come here. Okay. Sophie Lund Fullerton. There you go. Thank you. Come here. I didn't know we'd have to take pictures. Sophia Gardner. There you are. Thank you. Thank you. Sol Gutierrez Lara. Thank you. And great talk. Thank you. And did I pronounce it okay? Yeah. Good. Andrew Haggerty. Congratulations. Thank you. Oh, sorry. Okay. Nora Harake. There you go. Thank you. Thank you. Kimberly Huang. Congratulations. Oh, good. Thank you. Siddhant Holalkare. Congratulations. Thank you, Sid. Benjamin Feroz Economy Jaffer. Congratulations, Benny. There you go. Thank you. Olga Alexandra Katsarov. Thank you, Olga. Thank you. Ryan Kilpati. Thank you. Congratulations. Come on over here. Thank you. Alexander James Crusell. Congratulations. Thank you. Amalia Maayan Labelle. Did I get the stop right? Yeah. Congratulations. Thank you. Beautiful singing. Thank you very much. Samuel Marco Levy Ryan. Congratulations. Oh, wait. Photo. Great, thank you. Eric Liu. Thank you, sir. That was fabulous. Thank you. All right. Joe Cooney McDonald. Thank you, Joe. That was terrific. Thank you. Christopher Milan. There you go. Emmy Newwalder. There you go. Thank you. Thank you. Anirudh Nistala. Thank you, Anirudh. And Bose. Thank you. Amelia Orwant. There you go. Thank you. Congratulations. Alan Plotz. Congratulations. Thank you. Thanks. Elizabeth Smart. Congratulations, Betty. And congratulations. Hui Tran. Did I get that right? Great talk. Thank you very much. Thank you. Zoe Trobe. Congratulations. Great. Congratulations. Lila Diane Tung. Congratulations. Thank you. Thank you. Avery Huang. Thank you. Thanks so much, Avery. Congratulations. Lawrence Huang. Congratulations, Lawrence. All right. Thank you. Alexander Williams. Thank you. Congratulations. Thanks. And joining us from China, Xingyang Wang. Hey there, Henry. Congratulations. And the Commonwealth class of 2021.
Thank you.